Hello and welcome to a podcast so new that we haven't even officially titled it yet. Um, Hi, I'm Steve Soucie from Friday Night Drive, joined today by one of our newest contributors to Friday Night Drive, Mason Schweizer. Today we're going to talk a little bit about what's going on in the Kankakee County area in football. Always excited to get this going. First of all, welcome aboard, Mason.
Oh, all right, I'm back. We're less than a minute in already, our first technical difficulty, so we got that one out of the way. That's good. Get it done and over with. As Seuss just mentioned, I'm Mason Schweizer, sports editor of the Daily Journal. Someone who grew up reading Seuss, so getting to do this has been kind of a dream come true. It'll be a lot of fun to get to talk some football with you.
Well, first old man reference. I appreciate it. So, there we go. There we go. So, basically, like you said, I've got a lot of history in that area. But it seems kind of interesting when you look at it from the perspective of, let's start with the city schools. We've got a couple of programs that are going through yet another coaching conversion here. First off, with Bishop McNamara, I mean, when I was in Kankakee, that was the one thing that you could count on, the stability in the Bishop McNamara coaching staff. And now we're on the fourth coaching change over the last 6 years.
Yeah, if you include Coach Alan Rude, who did not coach a game at his alma mater before starting the 8-man program at St. Anne. So, yeah, in comes Greg Youngblood, a guy who's familiar with the area, worked under former head coach Bob Kelly last year, defensive coordinator at Olivet Nazarene University here in Bourbonnais. And Seuss, I know you saw the Irish a little bit at the Clifton 7-on-7 last week and told me that you thought they were pretty good at, looking pretty good. I'm really curiously excited about them just because they've got a lot of pieces that could fit in a lot of different ways. I highlighted a couple kids here. You look at Jordan Calloway, a kid who's 6'2", 220, plays running back and linebacker. And I was talking to some other coaches the other night, and in that conference, that size, he's big and strong enough that he could play guard, and he's fast and agile enough to be their starting running back like he's been. Julius May, a kid who kind of can be all over the offense, receiver, running back. He'll be roaming in the secondary as well. Carter Crutsinger, their quarterback, broke his collarbone last year. Gavin Antons came in. Now we'll see which one of those guys is going to get the job. They've got size out wide. Richie Dar at 6'7", going to max 6'3". He might be at 6'4" by now over the summer. And then you look at a kid like Ian Earps coming back from Bradley Bourbonnais after a year with the Boilers. He'll be shoring up linebacker spot, probably tight end as well. So a lot of pieces to see where things will all fit together and see how things can fit together in a pretty good Chicagoland Christian conference, I think.
When I looked at them over the weekend, the one thing that kind of stood out for me from seeing them a little bit last year, first of all, they seemed a lot more athletic. And secondly, they seemed a lot bigger. I felt like last year physically they would get overwhelmed by a lot of the better teams in the Chicagoland Christian, just simply on a pound for pound basis. And it looks like for whatever, however they put that together, they seem a lot more likely to at least meet the physical challenge of the opponent that is on the other sideline.
A lot of 6 a.m. weightlifting sessions this summer. It could be attributed to that. I can tell you that much. They've been pretty much living in the gym over the month of July, 6 a.m. every day, Monday through Thursday, getting after it. And yeah, like you said, it's starting to pay dividends. And yeah, very interested to see how things can come together. As you talk about that stability that you associate with McNamara. They've missed the last 3 playoffs. They never in school history had they missed 3 playoffs in a row until this current stretch. So we'll see if they can kind of turn those tides and get back into the postseason. You would know better than I, possibly 2A, maybe 3A team if they can make the field this year.
I think that's probably a 2A squad if they make the field. So, that's definitely a situation that will be interesting to monitor, see how they get going. Their non-conference schedule, I think, is pretty pivotal for them. They open with Lawrenceville. That's a team that I think they should probably be able to beat. And then kind of a pivotal game against Herscher in week 2. So, which will kind of set them up for a conference schedule, which I like that conference. I think it's a good fit for Bishop McNamara, but I also think it's pretty top heavy. So I think there's an opportunity there for them if they get a little bit of momentum going, that they could find themselves back in the playoff mix. Well, let's switch gears now to Kankakee. Once again, another school undertaking a coaching change, and another school, at least a school in this sense, that has a lot of success underneath its wings. So, is this transition, one where they feel like that can continue under a new coach once again?
Yeah, Coach Ed Hazlett, who does have some familiarity here. He was the defensive coordinator for 3 years under head coach Derek Hart. He was the defensive coordinator for the 2021 Class 5A state finalist team. Souce, just if I want to go back to the start of 2019 when Derek Hart took over, he was there for 4 years. Miles Osei was there for 2 years. He's now at Evanston. Since 2019, this Kankakee defense has allowed 11.4 points per game and has pitched 22 shutouts. Coach Hazlett was the guy who kind of started their dark side defense mantra, that fast, physical, hard-nosed, swarm to the ball defense. And then you also look at an offense that's really, found a groove under Coach Osei the last couple of years. Philip Turner back at quarterback as a junior. His favorite target from last year, Zeke Sherrod's back. Cedric Terrell III. He had a game last year where he passed, caught and ran a touchdown, He's back as well. They've got a lot of talent on both sides of the ball, a lot of really good athletes, and they'll for sure in the first couple weeks get an idea of where they're at. They've got Nazareth again week 1, going to Lincoln Way East week 2, even going to Normal week 4. You're not going to see a whole lot of non-conference slates that good.
Yeah, that's a difficult 3 games in the non-con. And credit to Kankakee for recognizing that they needed to do that because, over the past decade, to be completely honest with you, it's pretty much been a Kankakee and Crete-Monee conference and everyone else significantly behind those 2 schools in the chase for the conference title. So to test themselves, to get themselves ready for potential playoff runs, they've really beefed up that non-conference schedule. Adding Lincoln Way East, obviously, a huge mountain to try to climb. But in that sense, one of those things. I guess what I'm interested most in looking in Kankakee is what have you heard or what are your expectations from their in the trenches play? I know that's always kind of a pivotal thing for them. Do they have, I guess, enough to compete at the high level that they've been accustomed to the past couple of seasons?
Well, at the top on both sides, Jair Sutton back. He's going to be a 3rd-year starting defensive tackle as a junior. He was an all-area kid for us, an all-conference kid in the Southland. Offensively, Demir Green came in as a freshman last year and was their best offensive lineman at guard. So he's going to be leading a group. I think you could see KJ Kreit in there as well. His dad, Chris Kreit, a longtime offensive line coach there at Kankakee. He's going to certainly be in the mix. Bryce Arsenal, a kid back from last year. So like you said, that's the one area that they've really been trying to work on the last few years on getting to be as solid as the rest of their position groups. And if they can figure things out the first couple weeks and get rolling, I think that can pay dividends for them down the road. And you saw a lot, especially Coach Osei, they would try and counter that by just getting the ball out very quick, jet sweeps, quick little dump passes, things like that. So there are ways that you can work around that, but maybe they don't need to worry about that this year.
Once again, we'll go over to the other city school, as we call them. Bradley Bourbonnais, a strong season last year. Some of the components of that, that high-powered team, not there anymore. But it kind of feels like they still have quite a few pieces in place and could potentially be a pretty strong team. Got a first look at their new quarterback. I was pretty impressed with what he was able to do on Saturday. Throws a good ball, in my opinion. It will be interesting to see, if Bradley can sustain some of the massive gains that program has made over the last couple of years.
Well, if you talk to Coach Cole, he might say that we're even more excited about this group than any other. You talk about Ellis Johnson, the quarterback. This is the first time since 2021 that Coach Cole won't have one of his own sons leading the offense. But Ellis is a kid who's, he's took a lot of snaps last year as well at quarterback. Kid very experienced with the offense, very familiar with it. And when you've got weapons like he's going to have this year, I mean, Lizelle Edmond, the only junior to make All-State last year in Class 7A, he'll be again out at receiver where he caught 8 touchdowns last year, ran 5 more back on special teams and had a pick 6 as well. A kid who's got an offer to Ohio, probably going to start to see some more trickle in. And then when you can hand it off to a kid like Lizelle's brother, Kyron, a sophomore who you'll appreciate this, Seuss. Coach Cole told me he was a mix of Conrad Coleman and Corey Ackerman, a couple, probably the 2 greatest running backs to ever go to Bradley Bourbonnais. And Coach Cole thinks that Kyron's got a bit of both of them in him. He picked up his first big offer, Ole Miss, actually at a Bishop Mack basketball game over the winter. He's had a really busy summer, just a sophomore. Another kid, Isaac Allison, back in the backfield, and then Joel Moracle, an all-area, all-conference, could be an all-state type of offensive lineman this year, to also kind of anchor them up front. And then another kid on both sides of the ball I'm super excited about. I saw him have a great night against Wilmington in some scrimmaging the other night. Rontez Smith. Kid works really hard, really flies to the ball defensively. He's going to be playing a lot more on offense as well. And, Coach Cole's told me for about 4 years now, we wish we had more than one football because we've got so many mouths to feed. And every year they keep seemingly having more and more kids. So they're really excited about what they've got on hand.
You mentioned one of the teams in the Illinois Central 8 that the Daily Journal covers in Wilmington. Wilmington, obviously a powerhouse program that seems to just kind of regenerate itself on a year-to-year basis. But I have to admit, when I look at Wilmington heading into this season, it's going to feel really odd that there's not going to be a staple like Kyle Farrell in the background, the backfield for the Wildcats, and then anchoring that defense. There are just some guys that this group seemingly has had forever that now are no longer going to be there. And I have complete faith in the Wilmington's program's ability to continue to do the things that they do because that's what they do. But, I mean, what are you seeing from Wilmington now in terms of what the next chapter is for this program with so many guys that have been a staple of that program for the last 2-3 years graduated and moved on?
Well, you bring up Kyle, who's the program's all-time leading rusher, which is quite an accomplishment at that school. He wasn't even the leading rusher on the team last year. That was Ryan Ketman, who is back. He was an all-state kid. He had, I think, second in our area to Landon Benson with 1,431 yards and 18 touchdowns. So he's going to be fed the ball plenty. I talked to Ryan the other night, whether it's baseball, basketball, football, he's always played a year up with the group that just graduated last year. Those were that's your class just as much as your actual class. And now Zach Oland, another 3-year starter at linebacker and guard, they get to be the seniors who kind of oversee things. And like you said, they just seem to regenerate. It's crazy. They lose so many kids, but also return so many every year. And Coach Reentz, if you go back to the COVID pandemic, since the pandemic, the Wildcats are 32-1 in the ice, and they have not lost a regular season home game since 2018. So that'll be quite a streak to see if they can continue. They start at Morris this year, Coach Reentz's alma mater. I mean, those two football-loving programs, that atmosphere is going to be crazy. They end it week 9 with Cole City, another crazy matchup. And so we'll see what they can do in between as they try and get a third state title in the last 5 years.
Well, you just mentioned where I was going to transition there with Cole City, and you also mentioned a huge loss that those guys have taken in terms of Landon Benson. That he seemed to be a huge chunk of what they were able to do last year. Offensively, it seemed like every week you were hearing about a multi-touchdown game. I mean, where do the Kohlers go from here?
So I think it's really interesting. They had a kid who came in and played 4 or 5 games at quarterback last year as a sophomore, Connor Henline. He came in when senior Xander Mentz was injured, and I think we saw Connor can sling it a bit. He's got 2 of their top 3 receivers back in Gavin Berger, and Logan Natashuk. I think we might see them kind of open the offense up a little bit, and they might be a little bit more pass heavy than we've seen in recent years. I know Francis out there, he's kind of like Coach RJ Haynes, where they'll really tinker their offense to whatever they've got to work around them. And so I think we could see this Cole City offense open up a little bit more. There are some kids who played more on the defensive side last year that might see some backfield snaps, kid like Mason Gardner, who I believe is their leading tackler last year. Some DBs, Brody Wadlowski, maybe. But yeah, I think really it might be kind of a more pass-heavy approach, sort of. They haven't had a quarterback like this, I don't think, since the last lefty they had, Peyton Hutchings.
And with the Coal City, program of just kind of historically being right there, kind of maybe a step behind Wilmington in that race. I mean, is there another school in the Illinois Central 8 that you feel like might be able to make a step up this year, and maybe get into that conversation that goes along with Wilmington and Coal City?
I do think there are 3 teams that all could really make a run. Mantino last year snapped a 6-year playoff drought, 7-2 with the only regular season losses coming to Wilmington and Coal City. They took a huge step forward last year, but then also with those 2 losses, first round playoff loss, they see that, well, now we've got this next level to take. So let's see if they can do that. I talk about Coach Haynes adjusting to who he's got. He's got Connor Harrod back for his 3rd year at quarterback. I think we're going to see them kind of become more the pass-happy offense we saw 2 years ago when they had 3 all-conference wide receivers. Piatone, Coach Tully and them boys, they always seem to be knocking on that door. They're right there. We'll see if they can kind of take that next step, but they've got quite a bit to replace Chase Rivera, an all-time great running back. See how they can do that. And a team I'm really excited about, Souce, Herscher. Coach Mike Mosier in his 4th year, when he took over, he's said this, hey, my freshman class, the ones that are seniors now, like when they're seniors is when we're really going to have a special year. They were really close to the playoffs last year. They did get a rivalry win at Bishop Mack. I think that they can really make some noise if things go right for them. I think there's a chance, especially now with all the teams getting an extra, either a non-conference game or we might see some take the bye week victory, a good chance that all 5 of those teams could end up in the playoffs this year.
Yeah, I think that's one of those situations with you look at Herscher. I think that they've done a pretty nice job of laying the foundation and getting some younger kids some reps. And now those kids have, 2-3 years worth of varsity experience under their belt that they're ready to take into this year. So I do think Herscher is a viable sleeper team right now in that grouping. So one other Illinois Central 8 team, yet another one that is going through a coaching change in Reed Custer. What have been your impressions from what you've been able to get from them in the offseason?
Going to be real young, but they've got a sophomore class that's had a lot of success kind of through the lower levels. They had nice years freshmen last year. Some of those kids like Caden Klein played on varsity as freshmen last year. So Coach Turek coming in from Lincoln Way East, where he was JV coach. We'll see how things go. I think they'll be young. It's going to take some time. Rome's not built in a day. But I think by the end of the year, they could be a team that's looking to play some spoiler and maybe find themselves getting hot at the end of the year and having a chance as well. I do want to say, Souce, though, before we move on from the ice, is there a conference that has just a better group of dudes for head coaches? I mean, from Coach Rentz, experienced guy, all the way down to new guys like Jay Sloan out of Streeter, just a bunch of really good dudes. Coach Mosier, Tully, Art. I mean, just the list goes on. A bunch of great guys to really be around in that conference.
Absolutely. It's one of those things that, like, when I get the opportunity to go out and get those games in, you always feel welcomed. You always feel like it's the communities out there, they all have really nice foundations there in their programs with their coaching staffs. Like you said, just a great group of men that are taking the guidance of those programs. So good point. But okay, let's move to the south a little bit and talk a little bit Vermilion Valley football. This is yet another program that I am used to being coached in a certain way, and they're no longer that way. The Clifton Central Comets, Brian Spooner, a long tenure, ended at the end of last season, a perennial team that seems to get into playoffs from a year-to-year basis. Changing gears there too. I mean, what has been your assessment of what's going to go on in the transition for the Clifton Central Comets?
Well, aside from Coach Spooner and aside from Aiden Padevich, who was their leader in passing, rushing, and receiving last year, everyone else is back. They returned 10 starters on both sides of the ball, with Padevich being the only starter gone. Brady Schul, their quarterback, he got hurt last year. That's why Aiden had to shift from receiver to quarterback. They've got their entire offensive line back. They've got both of their running backs, Evan Cox and Derek Rodriguez. So Jeff Perzee comes in, a new head coach there, but someone who did coach under Coach Spooner there at Central. He's a Central grad. The Perzee surname in Clifton, it's like this. So I think they're really excited down there about things. And, they got back into the playoffs last year, snuck in. And I think this year the VVC might be a little bit wide open. And I think they're a team that could really step up and have a nice, 7-win season or something like that. And see the experience they got last year really start to pay off.
I got a little bit of a peek at Moments last weekend. I'll be honest, I don't know what to make of them. It's a school that has kind of produced up and down results over the last couple of years. An interesting trend with them too. They can maybe piece it back together. I think they have a real chance of possibly being a 1A playoff team if they're able to do that. But I don't know. Like I said, it was kind of hard to get a read on them. I didn't really get a great look at them. But what have been your impressions of Moments at this point?
Well, they're going to be really interesting. I mean, they went 8-1 last year in the VVC, only lost to Bismarck Henning, who we probably should say again, not in our coverage area, but probably the class of the VVC field again this year, maybe Westville too. But when you look at Moments, they lose kids like Brogan Halpin and Nick Charbonneau, all state kids. But they also bring back a kid who's got a chance to end up as the best passer in school history, Eric Castile. He took over as a freshman. Mid-season, 2 full years of starting, 3,800 yards, 40 touchdowns. He's going to have some new guys to throw to, some kids like Eddie Ferreira, Jaden Dow. They had big moments last year. They're going to need to piece it together for a full schedule. Going to have some new pieces in the trenches too, see who kind of can find some time in there. But, they've been really good the last few years. Really unfortunate. Castile got hurt in their first-round playoff game to Dwight last year, and once he went out, the wheels kind of fell off. And really, my heart really hurt for them being at that game last year. And we'll see. Coach Walker's gotten things going pretty good out there. They I think playoffs for sure. And if they can end up in Class 1A, who knows what could happen then?
The other two area teams from the VVC, Watseka and Iroquois West, have kind of found the sledding to be a little bit difficult over the last couple of years. Is there reason to believe that maybe their momentum might be going in the right direction?
When you look at Watseka, they thought that it was last year. They won their first 3 games. Things were looking good, and then a 6-game skid to end the season. And they're another team like Central. They bring back all 5 offensive linemen from last year. They do lose a couple running backs. Quarterback Andrew Shoemaker is gone. But they do have some pieces back. I actually saw Coach Franzen, who used to coach under Dan Wetzel at Herscher, now with Wetzel being at Bradley. Saw Coach Franzen catching Bradley in Wilmington the other night. It was good to talk to him. One thing that I talked to Coach Franzen about, this is his 4th year. So kind of like Coach Mosier at Herscher, these are kids who don't know anything other than playing high school football for their coach now. And he's another guy who thinks that this is the year that things can really turn up. And then down at Iroquois West, 0-9 last year. They were really young. They had kids, freshmen and sophomores all over the field. I think by the end of this year that's going to start to pay dividends. Look for a kid, Aiden Miller, with 2 A's, Aaydn. He played all over the field last year. I think he could settle in at quarterback and kind of take charge of this team and get them back to, it was not that long ago, Seuss, where they were a perennial playoff team there for a few years with the Leonard brothers there, who are now at, Clayton at Illinois, Cannon at Iowa. So they're going to try and get back to that point. But the VVC being a locked conference too, it's really interesting to see the ins and outs and how things might change up from year to year.
All right. Well, I mean, that kind of wraps up a little look at the teams. I just wondered if maybe you could share some insight on maybe a game or two in the first couple of weeks that you're most excited about seeing in your coverage area.
I think obviously you look at Naz and Kankakee. They've produced some great games. This is the 4th installment. The first 3 have been decided by a touchdown or less. Of course, their first meeting was the infamous 2-0 Naz victory. That's a game that I will never forget. And that, going to Lincoln Way East for week 2 for the K's, we're going to learn a lot about that team in the first 2 weeks. Really our week 2 in general. I mean, I really like Crete Monee at Bradley Bourbonnais week 2 could be a lot of fun. And then, of course, what's really our biggest area rivalry game the last few years is Bishop McNamara and Herscher have gotten back together. That could be a game where the losing team of that one looks back and says, man, that was our chance to make the playoffs. So the road teams won the first 2 since they started getting back together. I'm really excited about that. And also, Souce, I think you agree with me on this. This week 2 slate is awesome, but we've got one Southwest Valley team in Bradley Bourbonnais playing a Southland team in Crete Monee. And then we've got a Southland team in Kankakee playing a Southwest Valley team in Lincoln Way East. Guys, let's get this all-city matchup back together. These programs have never both been this good at the same time. This is the perfect time to do it.
Let's spark that flame. Let's get it going. Absolutely.
Ronnie Wilcox, guys, I hope you listen to this and we can maybe get this going again.
Well, I showed up a little bit late to the Central 7-on-7 on Saturday, but I was told as soon as I got there by 4 different people that the Kankakee Bradley 7-on-7 game was, shall we say, very spirited. So yeah. I certainly would like to see what the results would be of lining up 11-on-11 on both sides with a packed house at either one of the schools. Both are good environments for high school football now. Both have good venues. I'd really like to see what would happen if that would happen. So, yeah, if you want to bang that drum, I'll stand right next to you and bang that drum with you. Let's get that going.
I've been trying, man. Once every year or so, I write a column about we need to get not just football, all sports. We're seeing a lot of our local rivalries non-conference go away instead of, adding to them. So, yeah, and it starts with football, absolutely. Bradley and Kankakee, guys, please, pretty please by next year. Can we have that game back?
Sounds great. Well, Mason, I look forward to talking with you all season about the great sport of football, and I know you share a lot of passion for those area teams, just like I do. Have a lot of history with them, so look forward to following their stories along with you all season long, and eventually, sometime along the point in time, we'll come up with a name for this thing. But thanks for joining me, and we'll catch up with you. We'll catch up with you soon. I'm not sure when the next installment will be, but I'm sure looking forward to whenever that may be.
I can't wait. And I do want to say to the 2 or 3 people that we have listening who listened to my old Daily Journal Prep podcast pre-COVID, welcome back, Pod Squad.